Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a new video. Make sure you like the video immediately and subscribe. We are very close to 2.5 thousand subscribers. So, today, when you're seeing this, it is the day before April 1st, the last day of March, the day before April Fool's Day, and on April Fool's Day, we will have the spring general election, mostly. Some spring general elections, such as the 2021 one, have had different races, such as St. Louis mayoral. That will be April 8th because it's very different to how normal uh, general elections are run, where you'll never have a November 1st federal election. It will always be November 8th, such as in 2022 and 2016. But for some reason, probably because there's no November 1st holiday, Wisconsin, Florida, other states use April 1st as their spring general election date. So on April 1st, we will have many contested races, such as the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, the Wisconsin Superintendent of Public Instruction. We'll also have a ballot initiative on voter ID, which I'll talk about it, but it's pretty clear cut. We will have the Omaha mayoral election. We'll have two special elections in the two districts of Florida. And I think we'll have an Oklahoma State Senate runoff and some Florida State House and State Senate primaries, which I don't really care about. I'm sorry, but a State House primary doesn't interest me because we have some big races. The 3-4 kind of, though this one isn't going to be settled. It's going to be settled on May 13th. April 1st is the primary, but the three big races to watch are Florida 6th, Wisconsin Superintendent, and the biggest one, Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now, today I'll be releasing my final predictions for all of these races. Going over what current data shows and going over my reasoning for why I believe what I believe in these races. But anyway, subscribe so you won't miss my election night, which will be coming out tomorrow, 6:45 EST, I think. Um, we will have an election night going over these results and more. It won't just be Wisconsin Supreme Court. Wisconsin polls close at 9, so if you don't want to stay for the 2 hours that we'll be reviewing the Florida, Oklahoma results, or not Oklahoma, Omaha results, and giving final predictions for the Wisconsin court results, you can always tune in around 9. This is a crucial election, and it's going to be fun watching results of it. It's been very fun covering it, even though it's been a little bit more tense than the 2023 one, which, well, we'll get into it. So, anyways, I cut there because I wanted to open up some more tabs. We'll go with the lower profile races first. So, I'll start off with the Florida special elections, which, did you guys see that my computer's glitching? So if it's glitching, my bad. I even tried restarting it. I think it's just developmental illness. Please pray for my computer as it wrestles through these problems. But Florida, neither one of these special elections were considered somewhat competitive. In the primary elections, Republicans significantly outvoted Democrats. There was no Democratic primary for the first district, but Republicans did pretty well in turnout. And in the sixth district, Republicans won turnout 40,000 to 16,000. So it was a pretty good night for Republicans. And really, only one of these is considered competitive. Florida's first is expected to go quite easily Republican. If we look at the early voting for Florida's first, the electorate currently, as it stands now, remember we have, I think, one more day of early voting, and also we have election day. By party registration, R plus 18.5, which, you know, it's not as good as it was in 2024. It's around a slight underperformance. I actually think I can go here to the 24 general. I don't think I can compare county by county um, for this, but it's a slight underperformance of the 2024 general, which Republicans did kind of have their act together. Turnout was slightly higher. Obviously, turnout started good for Democrats when it was only mail ins, but we've had all the early vote. it's not incredible, but it is enough that Jimmy Petronis, the Republican nominee, will easily win this district. He actually has been outspent quite massively by Gabe Almont. This will be a common theme. Democrats spending in these special elections. Democrats have given it lip service a bit. The problem is it's going to be a very tough district to win. I mean, already like Matt Gaetz won the district by 32%. He's not exactly the strongest candidate. Really, the only place Democrats could ever think of netting votes is Escambia County, which is the largest county, and even still, even though it's narrow, you do have to swing it pretty Democrat to win the district at large. And currently, that Escambia County vote by mail is relatively close. Um, yeah, 6,389 to 6,822. An in-person early vote has made it a red county. So currently, they're not even winning that in turnout. And remember, you have to win that county by maybe 10 to 15% to win the district at large. So I think it's pretty over for Gabe Almont. I'm pretty confident in saying that Jimmy Petronis will win the Florida first special election. Even Trump won that county by 19. We can go here and actually see how Florida. I have Wisconsin pulled up because it's a more important race, but Florida for Escambia County. Um, Republicans I mean, what's that? A 51.1. This includes election day, by the way. I will say it includes election day turnout, but 51.1 to 29.5. That's like a 20-point lead, and it roughly ran even with this. Judging by that, um, Escambia, I mean, it doesn't have the exact percentages, but like judging by that, it should be a slight Republican win. Plus, I would say that Jeremy Petronis is a better candidate than Gabe Valmont. So I'd say brace for maybe a slight underperformance of Gaetz, like or a D plus 6, 7 shift, making the district at large maybe R plus 25, R plus 20 if it's a bad night for Republicans. But don't expect it to drop too much lower than that. But we do have Florida 6, which has been considered somewhat competitive as of late. Like I said, there was some considerable differences in primary turnout. Randy Fine himself got twice as many votes as the Democratic side. So it seemed pretty obvious he would win. He had endorsements from basically everyone, and Aaron Baker was a joke candidate. Thinking that DeSantis should be the nominee in 2028. That's a great way to alienate every Republican ever. But Fine swept quite easily in this primary. But after once the general election has begun, he's tanked a lot. Some polling actually, this one, this one hasn't been released, I don't think, but we know the top line of it. Josh Weil actually leaves Randy Fine by 3%, while St. Pete polls, who isn't the best pollster, has Randy Fine up by 4. I will say they had Rick Scott up by 3, so that's a pretty good sign for Fine. But like I said, with Gabe Almont outspending Petronis nearly 3-1, this has been a massive spending advantage for Josh Weil. He has outspent Randy Fine nearly 10-1. Remember, he's supposed to be the independent school teacher who's not backed by big money. And he got 9.5 million from the DNC. But such a independent, poor little school teacher fighting against corruption. But Randy Fine, perhaps it's because he hasn't gotten that much money. Perhaps it's because he took this race for granted. I mean, who wouldn't? It's a Trump plus 30 district. But he's been terrible on the ground game. Florida, these districts are similar. I'd say that Florida's first is slightly more Republican. Actually, Mike Waltz won by more than Matt Gaetz, but like the difference in candidate quality there is a little bit, a little bit large. But Trump won the first district by like maybe 5 points more than the sixth district. Like the sixth district, all of these counties in it are safe Republican counties. None of them really should be competitive. Um, but even with that, the electorate is basically half the electorate in Congressional District 1. This was actually a Democratic lead because Democrats amassed a pretty large early vote lead in Volusia County, which is the biggest county. They amassed a nearly 1,000 vote lead there. And Republicans basically net even, ran net even throughout the rest of the district. Thankfully for Randy Fine, he's begun to pick it up. Trump did do a tele rally for him, shouted him out, or shout out is a funny way to put an endorsement, but he specifically tweeted about this race, and he's slowly begun to regain that. They expect it to be like maybe an R+13, R+12 on a bad night electorate in this district. I do think Josh Weil, with the massive amount of funding that's gone to his campaign, there's some questions about whether he squandered that. But I don't think he's done so. I think he's run a pretty okay campaign. His ads are good. He obviously has a good ground game. I think he's going to keep the district within 10. When the Volusia portion of the district here, this portion, and I think he could potentially win if it's a terrible night for Republicans. I just think that he's not going to win independents by enough. And here's the problem. Republicans nearly make up 48% of the votes here. Is just no independents are turning out. So even if he wins independents, it's not going to work out too well for him. So I'd say that Randy Fine is in such a red district, it's an underperformance, but he still ends up winning. So those are the two congressional races on the ballot. We'll move on to the Omaha mayoral election. It really seems to be a race between Mike McDonald and Gene Stothert. Gene Stothert is a pro-Trump Republican in this seat. She is running for her fourth term in office. She won in 2021 by quite a bit. We saw that she was going to win because in the primary she got a majority, but Democrats really didn't contest this race too much. This time they have. There's been some scandals that the Democrats are funneling their money here. They were sending ads to Mike McDonald, who's a Republican. He switched about a year ago. But they have been accused of sending money and ads and supporting Mike McDonald's campaign, the Nebraska Democratic Party. I would say there's a chance Mike McDonald will get locked out. I think Stothert will make the general election because it's no matter what, even if one candidate gets 50%, you make the general election if you're top two candidates, and then it's basically runoff on May 13th, very similar to the Wisconsin system. But it looks like Democrats will split the vote. Or at least the vote says that's going to vote just for Democrats. Jasmine Harris and John Ewing have split the vote. I don't think Terry Brewer is much of a factor in this race, but it does look like Mike McDonald and Gina Stothert will move on to the general election. I think Mike McDonald would be slightly favored in that just because he has more appeal to Democrats. He's backed by Democrats. He's a former Democrat. And Gene Stothert is a pro-Trump Republican in such a blue city, so it's going to be hard for her to win, but I think at least in the primary, she spent more, like a lot more. These two buffoons are going to take some votes from Mike McDonald, so I think she ends up winning the primary by maybe 7 to 8%, with a plurality. And then the general election, like this poll shows, which was sponsored by Mike McDonald's campaign, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's going to be close. So this will be a race to watch, though we won't know too much until May 13th. And now we move on to the final two elections. Wisconsin Superintendent of Public Instruction really hasn't been contested by Democrats. Jill Underly won in 2021 in a relative landslide against Deborah Kerr. Though Deborah Kerr, even though she was backed by the GOP, she rejected most of those endorsements, and she didn't really run as a Republican. She ran as a Democrat who was slightly more moderate than Underly, and in such a low turnout election that really didn't do her any favors. So this was virtually a Democratic primary. I thought a similar thing would happen. Brittany Kinsler is a blue dog, moderate Democrat, but she's run basically as a Republican in a nonpartisan election. She's run alongside Brad Schimmel, the conservative nominee for Supreme Court. She's also gotten quite a bit of backing from Democrats. I think she even got the former mayor of Madison to back her over Underly, who's running as the de facto Democrat. Weirdly enough, Wikipedia hasn't added post-primary endorsements for this race. It's as if the fat lardo pieces of shit that run this website can't accept the fact that they're going to lose an election. I don't think this race is too competitive. I've been hearing a lot from people, the same people who told me that Jeff Wright would make it the general election, but I'll trust them this time. But I've been hearing Jill Underly is doing terrible. She's barely spent anything while Kinzer has crucified her on the ad waves. This poll, I wouldn't read anything into it. It was a Kinzer push poll, but it does look like Kinzer has run a pretty phenomenal campaign so far. And it looks like she's getting quite a few Jeff Wright voters. Anyone who thought that, based off this performance, Kinzer got 25% in South County. Anyone who said, "Oh yes, Wright is a liberal," and obviously all of his voters will go to Jill Underly, which would mean that Jill Underly in South County, a Trump county, I can pull this up. This county voted for Trump. Anyone who thought that the liberal candidate would get 75% of the vote in this county was wrong. And is wrong. So I'd say that Kinzer's the favorite. I was exaggerating a little bit early on when I said this race wasn't competitive, but we definitely have a definitive favorite, which is Brittany Kinzer. I'd say she wins by a large margin, a likely margin, 6 to 7%, maybe. I just think that Underly has floundered enough in her campaign. And Kinzer will get enough Democratic support in places like Madison, Milwaukee, and even some of the suburban areas to blow her out of the water. So it looks like Wisconsin will have a new superintendent, which will be Brittany Kinzer. And now we move on to this, which honestly is more important than any of these races. All these races combined, this race has had, it's kind of guaranteed to have 100 million spending. This 76 figure is old. I have an article that said it was like 81 million a week ago, and that it was going to hit 100 million, which is nearly double the amount spent on the last court race, which is insane. It's insane. It's an entirely different discussion what the implications of spending 100 million on a court race have on politics. But the simple fact is, this race is one of the most high profile races to happen. This is the most important race this year. Virginia governor, New Jersey governor, New York City mayor, fucking state senate specials and state house specials across the country are not going to get nearly as much focus as this race. This race, virtually every prominent Republican has talked about it. Virtually every prominent Democrat has talked about it. Everything is converging on this race. This is the linchpin of whether Trump is popular or whether he's not that popular. This is the only race this year, not even the gubernatorial elections, but this race is the one I give you permission to extrapolate overall to Trump's administration. Because this race, it's nonpartisan, but it's nonpartisan in the flimsiest way possible. Brad Trimble and Susan Crawford have ran solely as partisan candidates. And yes, they've tried to say they're moderate, but everyone does that. They really, for the most part, have abandoned the nonpartisan. Oh, I just have to wait to see how I rule on that. Obviously, the debate they did that, but for the most part, this has been just back and forth hitting each other. You oppose the Republican politicians, you oppose the Democrat politicians, you support the Republican politicians, you support the Democrat politicians. This has been a race defined by partisanship. This will be the most partisan Supreme Court election ever, which I think is interesting because we go back to 2019. This was a fairly close race. It's weird how they don't have the pictures and they have the pictures for here. Wow, I wonder if you could read into that. But this map resembles this map. Not, there's no resemblance between these two maps, and these are similar margins. This one is much lower turnout. With this type of turnout, I do think that the Liberal candidate would have won, but you can see quite a difference in these rural counties. Even here, Lafayette is a Trump plus 21 county that voted for the Liberal. Trumpealo County is once again a Trump plus 21 county voting for the Liberal candidate. We have Grant, a Trump plus 18 county voting for the Liberal. And at the same time, we have the conservative candidate cracking 60 in Ozaukee County. That's a 10-point improvement over Trump. They are cracking, what is that, 70% in Washington County, a modest improvement over Trump. I think they have results by county. They don't have results by county. I could have pulled this up, but the conservative county got much higher than 60% or 70% in these counties. Each of these counties was like maybe a 20-point overperformance of Trump's 2024 result, which it's insane how these court races have been polarized. Where the map, it's going to look different than this map. I'll get into that, but it's going to look nothing like this map. Like, if Crawford is getting less than 35%. In Waukesha County, like in this race, she's getting blown out of the fucking water. Like she's getting destroyed. If she's getting less than, I think it was like 38% in Ozaki, like she's gonna, it's gonna be a landslide for Schimmel. But if Crawford is winning Grant, Lafayette, Trempealeau County, it's gonna be a landslide for Crawford. And it's it's weird how stuff like this has happened, but it's also kind of sad that now so much big money has been poured into these races. But well, once again, I really can't change it. I'm not going to go to the Wisconsin Supreme Court and say stop spending money with like a I don't know picketing sign. But yeah, they keep repeating the 100 million number, which I said first. Ha ha ha. But we've had some polling for this race. I wouldn't read too much into it. Um, Polling started out good for Schimmel, but that was kind of because Susan Crawford wasn't that well known. She's put herself out there. Her name recognition is pretty big. Um, she's gotten quite a few endorsements. Though Brad Schimmel has gotten more endorsements than Daniel Kelly. He's got local politicians, but at the same time, he's got Donald Trump. Which this is a massive endorsement, and that changes the race a lot. We'll get into the implications of that. But polling has been bad for Schimmel. I will say, one, these are all Republican internals, so that could be a bad sign for him. But like, this poll was the same poll that showed Kinzer up 22-20. It was pretty obviously a Kinzer push poll, but a lot of these polls aren't great. One, two, three are the same poll, which is supposed to show that Schimmel is surging. Um, I don't know why they released them all at the same time, but okay. I don't know how he went up from 35 to 39 between March 6th and March 12th, or March 10th, but okay. We also had a WMC poll that showed it tied. I I don't know about this poll. Doesn't have a great track record. We also have SoCal who pulled the race. I'm happy for SoCal. He's been given a lot of attention for this poll, which is great. Hopefully that causes the $800 bill that On Point promised to pay that he has defaulted on because he spent all his money on cruises. I really hope that for you, SoCal, because being saddled with such a debt isn't exactly a nice thing to do to one of your polling partners. But I will say I don't trust On Message WNC to at all gauge likely voters here. I don't trust TIPP to gauge likely voters. I don't trust the Tyson Group to gauge likely voters. Now, those are pollsters who are established, who have done stuff like this before. Maybe not for a Supreme Court election. This race is going to come down a lot to turnout, which we'll talk about. But if I don't trust them, SoCal, he doesn't have the best track record. He did significantly underestimate Trump in quite a few polls. I don't trust him to get the turnout right for the Supreme Court election. So I won't say throw all these polls in the trash. I'll arrive at my conclusions for this race via a different avenue besides for saying like, oh well, if you look at these polls and you read between the lines like a schizophrenic, because I will say my findings, my prediction for this race really isn't pointed to by these polls. If I gave my prediction solely based off these polls, would look like a completely different story. If that's not a hook, I don't know what is. But we have to go through these early voting numbers because we have some early voting numbers. We've had about 830,000 votes cast early, which the Supreme Court race in 2023 here had about 1 million votes on top of that. I will say expect slightly higher turnout, maybe 2 million, 2.2 million, because this race has, that faced twice as much spending. If the turnout's going to be 1.839 million again, discard anything I say, Schimmel's getting blown out of the water. You're going to see another result pretty close to this. And most of these counties that I'll talk about in flipping are going to stay with the Liberals and with Crawford. Otherwise, he's going to do better in like Lafayette, Grant, and lose that margin in the WoW counties. But based on spending and based on how there has been an uptick in in-person early, I do think that Election Day will have much more turnout. It depends on the weather. I can actually check the weather forecast for Wisconsin. I don't feel like I need to do that. Um, Especially since it's 2 days out. They don't know what the hell they're doing. But I will say, I do expect Election Day turnout to be slightly higher, which should help Schimmel. Now, early voting doesn't look that great. This is why I pulled up Vote Hub, because early voting. I will say, you look at early in person, it's looking much better for Schimmel. You know, Dane is being outvoted by Waukesha. Milwaukee's nearly outvoted by Waukesha. Here, Dane outpaced Waukesha. Milwaukee significantly outpaced Waukesha. But mail, which peeling back the curtain, I'm actually not able to see that quite easily. I can see mail requested and mail returned, but I can't see mail not yet returned, which is why I'm going to completely ignore it. I have a bar right here, which tells me that my recording software is sharing a window. That's what I clicked at the end of the video. So it's a little bit hard to see there. If you ever want to, I don't know, sneak up on me while I'm recording, hack my computer, and display a funny message here. Um, but mail returned here. That was 53,000 in Waukesha, 86,000 Milwaukee, um, Madison 81,000. Here, that's 68,000, which is actually kind of weird. How mail is higher. I think, yeah, uh, I'm, I guess I'm retarded. This includes early in person, so I'm not gonna do the math. I think I'll just use total votes cast, but I will say, so far, I'm not. Here's the thing. Compared to Milwaukee, I kind of like how turnout is, because Milwaukee turnout is down. Um, Compared to Waukesha, it's looking okay. Um, and Dane County, it's not looking great. I'm gonna be a little bit cautious here, and I don't love these early voting numbers so far. Um, I think they're looking not that great, and it's just there's this creeping sense in me that this looks way too much like 2023. And the problem is, I just these numbers would be good if it were Hagedorn. If I scrolled up here and I saw Brian Hagedorn as the Republican nominee, and I knew that the coalition was going to look something like this, I'd be okay with it, because I'd figure that these three counties could outvote Milwaukee, and the rest of the state could probably take on Dane. Like, I'd be fairly comfortable with these early returns, which, I mean, it's hard to decide whether they're looking better um, than these results or not. In my opinion, they're looking slightly worse um, for Republicans, but I could set that aside and say that, like, it's looking fine. Um, I just really wait. I just realized that I was completely talking out of my ass when I said that there were 830,000 votes. That's like I was like, wait, what the fuck? Why did early vote go up by so much? But no, this number is included here. So there's about 500,000 or 550,000 early votes. I don't think any more votes can be sent in, which means expect election day turnout to be like 1.5 million, 1.6 million, a rather large number like that, since we are outpacing 2023 turnout. Okay, that's weird. That's weird. That's the type of stuff you do when I don't include bloopers. But I would say that the suburban counties could outpace Milwaukee. But like, it comes down to whether I think that Brad Schimmel gets the numbers in these rural areas that Trump got, because I, I just these suburban counties, you're not going to reach your 2019 numbers. And I think this is a pretty good result to show. Compare this to whatever results you see, and like, it's you're gonna see the white working class areas shift Republican. Like, I don't think, or I can say for certain, if Schimmel is losing Trempealeau County, he is losing statewide. If Schimmel is losing Lafayette County, he's losing statewide. End of story. No winning when you're losing this much in the white working class areas. I just I don't think turnout is good enough where, like, you're not gonna get as good margins here as you used to get. Like, Schimmel's gonna probably outperform Trump in these suburban counties, but at some point, I don't know if it'll be enough. like this race has been hyper partisanized. Is that a word? I don't know. Um, Hyper polarized would be better, but like I think Schimmel will out improve in these counties, but I don't think the polarization will help Schimmel enough in these rural areas. I just it's going to be a tough win for Republicans, and I don't like to use the polling data. Let me pull this up here, and I feel like there's arguments you can use against the polling data, but I just these polls aren't looking great. And like they should be catching the more conservative voters. You really shouldn't have too much of a polling bias um, here, and I could ignore these polls if turnout was looking that good. And like I said, I'm using other arguments for these polls. If I were going solely based off these polls, I think that Crawford wins in a landslide. But I don't think she does. But I still think she. That's the wrong job. I still think she ends up winning by a rather large margin. If you are curious, I think that this is closer to being a lead margin than a likely margin. But I still think Crawford plus 4 to 5 is about my prediction. I think that Schimmel can improves considerably from Daniel performance. No, Daniel Kelly's performance in these rural areas. He flips Lafayette, Grant, Jackson, Dunn, Pierce County. I will admit, I think I'm probably overestimating him a little bit up here. Dunn County might be lean. That what is it? Jackson County might be likely. I could see an argument for Lafayette being a likely county. Um, but I think what happens is he does pretty good in these suburban counties, but he just doesn't assemble the Trump coalition in the rural areas. Dane and Milwaukee turnout makes up slightly more of the state, and he bleeds a little bit in like the northern areas of Wisconsin, Kenosha, Racine, Outagami. At least I think that Winnebago, Outagamie's here. I'm thinking of Oshkosh. Winnebago, I think, holds Democrat, flips from 2024 to Democrats. And Brown and Outagamie aren't as big as the margins you would want to win a Supreme Court race like this. So I think he falls short. I, I'm not sure though, and that's the thing. I think I'm ignoring a little bit of the bright spots for Schimmel here, and I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna be cautious. I'm gonna say Crawford likely wins as of now. She's favored 60-40 in probability terms. That's pretty close. Oh, and in case you're wondering, this is Omaha. I just figured, I might as well not reveal the big spoiler, which is my Supreme Court prediction. Talking about Omaha, but I do think we're favored to lose Wisconsin Supreme Court, which would be pretty sad. But like I said, she has a 60% chance of winning. Schimmel has a 40% chance of winning. This race could be close. We don't know who's going to win until the votes come in. Like I said, if turnout is, and I have to adjust my numbers here, because we've had how many votes statewide? It's not letting me see votes statewide. I think I have to reload or click elsewhere. Oh, yeah, I'm dumb. But we've had 544,000 votes statewide. In 2023, and a lot of this was turnout being bad for Republicans, we had 1.839 thousand votes statewide, which would mean if turnout is going to be similar, it's going to be around 1.3 million votes on election day, which virtually all the votes that come in on election day are going to help Schimmel. Statewide, obviously, if you're like in Dane County election day is going to break for Crawford unless Schimmel is winning by 50, which I think is slightly outside the realm of possibility. But election day is going to determine this. And when polls close at 9 p.m., we're going to have a pretty good snapshot of the race. Because if we see that there's 1.2 million election day votes, less turnout than this 2025 race, which is a possibility, Schimmel's cooked. That's the end. Bye bye. But if there's higher election day turnout, like if we reach 1.5, 1.6, Schimmel's in this, and I will not stand by this prediction, which is why it's a tentative prediction. And I figured I'd do a county map to show a rough estimation about where it's at. Where, if Schimmel's going to do better statewide, he's going to win Oshkosh. He's going to win Crawford. He's going to win, forget the county name, Richland County. Vernon probably isn't within the realm of possibility. I would say it's likely by margin as of now, but if he's doing good in election day votes, that's definitely potential. He's going to do better in Racine. He's going to run it up more in these WOW counties, in these rural areas. Even Daniel Kelly did pretty good in this in-between area between Milwaukee and the Bow counties, which only nets Republican votes. He's going to do better in the northern areas, and probably he's going to do better in these rural areas. So it all comes down to election day turnout. So if you support Brad Schimmel like I do, don't lose hope. There's many of positive signs for this race. I do think that we're favored to lose as of now, but this race will come down to turnout, and that is why I don't want to use these polls as evidence, because it looks not great for Schimmel, but I factor in these polls like just as much as I factor in my personal opinions on the debates and my personal opinions on how the campaigns have been run and how they appeal to moderates. I don't factor them in that much. It's more my general assessment of the race, which leads me to believe that Schimmel's not going to hit the margins he wants in the suburban counties, and he's going to flounder in the rural areas to the point where he loses somewhat statewide. And I will say I'm probably dooming with this prediction. Um, I don't think many people think that it's going to be this lopsided. I will say I'm actually to the right of On Point Politics' prediction, where he has Vernon County going for Brad Schimmel when he's losing statewide by 6. To put that in perspective, we had Daniel Kelly lose that county by 10. It was about even with statewide. He also has Ozaki as a 4.4 margin, which would, that's Daniel Kelly's margin when he was losing statewide by 5 more than On Point Politics says that Schimmel will lose by. Uh, but then Dane County somehow not just better than Daniel Kelly's performance, which was a 70. No, am I right? 64. I think I'm right about 64. 64-point loss. Yeah, Schimmel improving 15 from that. What? And Menominee County, he has Schimmel doing worse than Daniel Kelly. In fact, 20 points worse than Daniel Kelly. That makes sense. So it looks like I'm actually not the most liberal predictor, but this prediction is significantly to the left of quite a few people's forecasts on this race. And I will say, this has been a tough race to predict. I have no idea what election day turnout is going to look like. I'm mostly guessing that it's going to be okay for Republicans, because it might be doomerism, but I just don't like. I just really don't like these early vote numbers out of Wisconsin. Like, it might be something unnatural. It might be my sixth sense, but I just these are not what I want currently. So, but I will say this race can change. And presidential race, I don't think I'd have 5-point margin of error basically anywhere, because we knew what the race was going to look like, because most people are going to turn out. We knew Trump would probably overperform by a little bit. The polls showed most states within 5 points. This race, I can see it being Crawford plus 10. I can see it being Schimmel plus 5. I have no idea how this race is going to end up. Which is why, Wisconsin, you need to get out and vote. Vote for Brad Schimmel before 9 p.m. Please. This is the only way that we can save this country. And like I said, use this as a lens to examine Trump's term. And I do think that liberals win this race. I do think if it's a 5-point win for Crawford, it's outside the margin. We can say, let's just turn out. And I do think it would be a pretty big loss for Trump. And it would change a lot of the way I think about the popularity of his term and the way I view the midterms. I don't want to say his approval rating completely, but I do think turnout mixed with independents does show something about this race. That's why I extrapolated more than Virginia governor or New Jersey, because I honestly don't think those races will be as nationalized as this race. So, if you want to help Trump, if you want to preserve Wisconsin's court from being taken over by deranged leftists, kind of like it already has been, but even more insane leftists, now with 3 straight years to do whatever the fuck they want on the court, if you want to help Trump and help Republicans not lose 2 House seats, or 3 even, I've heard from some sources that Democrats might even make it a 5-3 map for Democrats when, you know, the 6-4 map, first of all, it's not 6-2. For one, for Tasso, it's 1-4 districts, and two, it's just because Democrats lost all appeal to District 3, and District 1 as an overperformer. It's, exactly what used to happen in Pennsylvania. You didn't see Republicans complaining about Pennsylvania's map. And Democrats held the 8th and the 7th district. You didn't see them complaining. It's exactly the same thing that happened in what's another state with a similar map? Exactly the same that happened in Washington. I mean, this map isn't that fair, but like it's the same thing of like 8 Democrat seats and 2 Republicans. I think 8 Democrat seats, maybe, yeah, 8 Democrat seats, 2 Republican seats. That's a worse ratio than Wisconsin. And compared to the statewide lean, it's about the same. But Wisconsin isn't really gerrymandered, but Democrats are going to try to gerrymander it. Because geographically, this state should not have 5 Democrat congressional districts, but they'll make it so because Democrats don't care about the will of the voters. Democrats just want to increase the number of districts they have in each state. I mean, Wisconsinites, look at how horrifically gerrymandered your downstate neighbor is. Look at even Maryland, 7-1. Look at New York. Like New York, people don't talk about this because it's so much better than the old map, or not the old map, but the old proposal. But 9th, 10th, 8th are drawn specifically to split Jewish minority area, where Jews, a minority statewide, are a majority because they vote heavily conservative. That's why it's drawn that way. California as well, not at all proportional to the state at large. Like the fact that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 districts in a state with like 50 districts are going Republican in a state that was 60-40 is insane. Like, so all the talk about, oh, Republicans gerrymandered Wisconsin so much, and no, it's just because Democrats can't appeal to Wisconsin at large. While California, your exact same arguments can apply. In New York and Illinois, you can't make the arguments about, oh, but Republican geography is terrible in New York when you can pretty easily draw more Republican districts there. But if you want to save Wisconsin, get out and vote. Um, I can't say how much it would help Trump because it would be a massive win if Republicans could flip the Supreme Court. And we probably would hold it for quite a while. I don't think we'd lose the 2026 or 2027 seats if we win this seat. So it would be a massive win for conservatives. So get out and vote Wisconsin. God bless America. God bless Brad Schimmel. God willing, he'll win. Hopefully. But for now, I think he's behind. Thank you for watching, though. Review of my final predictions: Brad Schimmel loses by like 5. Omaha in the primary. The incumbent wins by like 6-7 with a plurality. The Florida congressional districts, Florida first ends up R plus 50 and R plus 20, or R plus 20 to a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Florida sixth ends up like R plus 9, R plus 10. And I think that is it. So thank you for watching. Big video, big stream tomorrow. I'll try to fit as an April Fool's video so we can have a little bit of fun before the nerve-wracking election night. But yeah, this has been quite the journey. Thank you so much to everyone who has been a part of it with me. This has been a fun election to cover. This entire election cycle, even 2024, was pretty fun. But now, well, I'd say download early vote action, text as many voters as you can. I know I'll be doing a few different messaging lists after this. Like I've hit 250 today. I'll try to push that up to like 400 voters. But anyways, thank you for watching. Godspeed. Get out and vote. Testers done. Out.